Hello, New Zealand. I'm Bob McCoskrie. Welcome to Straight Talk. This is episode number 56. And tonight, with a large bunch of conservative women on the panel, we discuss why women tend to vote for left-wing parties. It's not just a trend in New Zealand. Should we be more understanding of, certain people? I'm going to be careful about saying the word, because if I say the word, then YouTube will immediately start blocking this program. So we're going to be a bit subtle about that. I'll explain when we get to it. Should we put age limits on social media? And why do we need more counselling in primary schools? And are the new government boot camps really that mean, horrible and nasty as is made out? Now, on the panel tonight, we have a record attendance from the XX side of the ledger. And we have, for the very first time, I think, in the history of Straight Talk, 3 women outnumbering the male panelists. So starting along the top, far right is Susie Miller from South Auckland. How are you, Susie?
I'm great, thank you. Enjoying being on the far right.
Yeah, good. I think we all do. Below you is Mel Taylor, who's on the right, but also up north as well. Is it bucketing down there like it is right outside my window, Mel?
No, it's been trying, but it's a pretty poor attempt.
Okay, it's on its way up. I just want you to know that. Should be there in about an hour. And beside you is Sue Reid, back after a sort of, family bereavement, wasn't it, Sue? You've been in Tasmania.
Yes, more time in Australia than New Zealand this year. So, but great to be back and back into it again. So, yes. And
you've come back to some snow, have you, in Masterton?
Yes, snow's forecast tomorrow. So I've got the wood burner ready to go. And, it's that funny spring kind of weather. You know, I was out riding my bike the other day and next thing we're in winter woolies and having to light the fire. So
total contrast. And beside you is Professor Rex Ardagh, who's in Christchurch. That must be pretty cool down there at the moment, isn't it, Rex? A lot of snow around the South Island.
Yeah, no snow here, but it's a very cold southerly wind coming in.
Okay. And still on holiday in the Cook Islands, coming live from there is Alfred Naro, or are you back in West Auckland?
Mate, home of the Pioneers, West Auckland. So, back here and plenty of rain.
Okay. Right, if you want to comment, and you can, and some are already coming through, you just do it through the Facebook Family First page. So it has to be on the Family First page. You can watch all over social media, but if you want your comments to come through, it's got to be on the Family First Facebook page or on our YouTube account. That can come through as well. The Image of the Week team is this one, and it was actually Biden went to a 9/11 memorial, and he was given this hat to sign, and then he just put it on, and I'm not quite sure if he realized what he was doing, but it just is a very funny sort of image. And the video, look, there were so many videos to choose from, to be honest, but there is obviously this huge focus about they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, which Trump said in the debate last week, and it was about immigrants possibly eating pets in Springfield, Ohio. Now, apparently Springfield has just under 60,000 people, but like, how many? What's Masterton? What's the population of Masterton?
28,000.
Okay, well, there's 60,000 in Springfield, and they've had about 15 to 20,000 migrants have settled there looking for work. So there's some interesting adaptation going on, and that's what he was, I think, getting on about. But anyway, he said that they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, and so there's been all these memes going around, and one of the most popular ones was this one. It's a guy called the Kiffness, and he makes music with people and animals all around the world. This particular thing has 2 million views on YouTube in just 2 days and 5.4 million on X, which is formerly Twitter. Have
Springfield, a watch. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
People of Springfield, please don't eat my cats. Why would you do that? Eat something else. People of Springfield, please don't eat my dog. Here's a catalog of other things to eat. They're eating
eating the dogs.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
They're eating the cats.
Meow, 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 meow.
They're eating the pets of the people that live there. They're eating the dogs.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
They're eating the cats.
Meow, 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 meow.
They're eating the pets of the people that live there. They're eating the dogs.
Yeah, anyway, I think you've got to be an animal lover to really get into that. There were some really, really funny ones going around, but all the money raised by that, I mean, that's how Ed Sheeran does it. I think he, creates the music riff like that, and then starts singing to it. So he's done very well out of that particular song. Anyway, let's get straight into it. And I wanted to cover a topic that we talked about last week, mainly because it was just all XY chromosomes last week, and I really needed some female input. And it's about this whole issue around, especially around westernized countries, females are voting for left-wing parties and males are becoming more to the right-wing parties. Now, I know none of you would vote for far-left parties. That's why you're on the panel in the first place. And if you do vote for far-left parties, put your hand up now and leave gracefully. But I sent you through this article, which was written by Ayan Hirsi Ali, who is an ex-Dutch MP, Somali-born critic of Islam. And she's highlighted the research, which shows that women aged 18 to 30 are now about 30 percentage points more liberal than the guys. And this is the UK, Germany, and South Korea. It's even wider. And in fact, we saw it in the latest New Zealand Roy Morgan poll that I showed last week, where if you look at the breakdown of male and female, you'll see there that women are more likely to vote for Labour Greens Māori Party, and men are more likely to vote for National, ACT, and New Zealand First. And this is just in Europe. Males are sort of staying around the centre. 10 is very conservative, 0 is liberal. But you can see females there are becoming more liberal, and those countries there, the further to the left they are, that means they are further left, and the dark blue is female, the light blue is male. And one more graph. There's a lot of information in there, but you will just see about the fourth line up in purple, New Zealand out the right-hand side. And basically it's showing that they are becoming, that the media is pushing words like sexism, sexist, male chauvinist, misogyny, and misogynist. And so they think that that may be part of the reason that women are moving to left-wing parties. So without further ado, and ladies, I'm going to have to limit you to 17 minutes each so that we actually get through the program. Susie, I'll start with you. Why are women more likely to vote for left-wing parties, even if you personally are not?
I liked all the points that were brought up last week. I think Dr. RT said that there's more coming out of university that are female. I mean, more females coming out and graduating from university than males. Everything that is in Ali's article, women are more empathetic, probably just easier to convince. My personal observation is that, we don't tend to talk about in our female circles about politics as much, and we just kind of just like read the room and go with, my friends all think that the Greens care more about the environment, therefore that must be true, and Labor cares more about the marginalised and the minority groups, and so there's a tendency for women to just not want to put their heads out to get shot, but just go with the crowd. I think I've only got about 2 friends that I can talk politics with. And it just reflects on the amount of research that's going into their views and who they vote for. It's just this general acceptance of, it's coming through the media, it's coming through my hourly news, must be right. And there's still too much trust. But I think I love the way that society is going to custard, because it's making women that I come across care more and ask the questions. And so I'm able to kind of just say, are the left as kind as they make out to be? Like, is this, for example, like LGBTQ, being kind and caring and just all tolerant, what does that lead to? Where does that take us to? It takes us to sterilization of kids, right? It takes us to like cutting off of body parts. It takes us down places we just are like causing harm to kids. They're more depressed, they're more suicidal. It doesn't bring increased confidence, it brings less. And so it's just talking to people as much as possible, like asking questions like, well, why do you want to vote for them? Like, what do you actually believe about what National want to bring in? Like, let's have a look at what some of the things they've done to education. Banning phones was good, right? Yeah, just little things like that. You gotta like keep the conversation going and challenge some thoughts, challenge some narratives that are just being accepted without question.
Yep. Okay, Mel, you agree with that?
Definitely. Women are generally speaking, women are emotive. And I think that's playing a huge part of it. For non-Christian conservative women, they see things like children getting together outside schools and fighting against the so-called global warming, and they become passionate, they become involved. They're like, oh my gosh, these kids are fighting on behalf of us, we should be there for them. So a lot of it's emotively driven. You look at mainstream media that's gone from simply reporting the facts to actually writing with a lot more emotion in all their stories and in all their reporting. I think men are a lot more black and white, and gone are the days where people actually looked at political parties' policies. It seems to be a lot more based on personality politics. And Labour and Greens are good at that. They do a lot of campaigning based on personality and emotion and popularity. Just look at how Jacinda reacted to the Christchurch attack and how the woman was like, oh my gosh, she's so loving, so kind. It was all emotive stuff. And I bet you that most of the people that were feeling that way were women. And then add feminism into it, where you've got a whole look at how the world's gone so bad, men have failed, so us women have to make a stand. And then you add all this emotion into it and political parties that are emotively driven. I can see why it's swinging that way.
Okay, so you've been in the politics game a while. I mean, this is more of a recent trend. Why do you think it's happening?
I think we've got to look at where it's come from. And over the years, campuses and so-called intelligent women gone out being educated. What have they, you've had feminism, but then it's also gone to another level. And yes, while you have the traditional, that women are more empathetic and egalitarian, conformist and risk adverse, men favour free speech, rigorous debate and advancing knowledge, with the foundational text being important. That's what Ali has quoted. And I think that free speech is really important. I get into some of those issues, and I can get into trouble with women because for so long you feel like you've got to, and I have had time in politics. It's been around politics for a long time. You feel like you do have to soften the tone around women, and it's like, come on, where's your gumption? Where's your inner drive to fight for some of these issues that we're now seeing? And I think they've taken out. I've said it before. When you take out your value system, your Judeo-Christian values, and you're replacing it with the new values of the day, the climate, and we have to be empathetic, and we have to be inclusive, and we have to be so loving, and that's dangerous ground. So that appeals to, they get traction with this, with the Green movement, with the Left movement, with some of those Marxist socialist parties. They embrace it because it's part of indoctrination. But you try and disagree with them, and you see how kind those groups are. And you only have to look at people like J.K. Rowling, who's absolutely marginalised. And it takes and some of the women in Australia, Louise Elliott, Moira Deeming is facing her defamation case today. Some of these women in politics in Australia have had to really find some still beans in their spirit to stand up to this. And some of their greatest critics are women. So it's a really, it's a tough call. And I think that while we can have generalizations of women are more to the left, I think that I see it in my circles, in my daughter's circles, my children's circles, more women who are growing more conservative and are wanting to be bold enough to speak out on some of those conservative issues, but that's a really, really hard task for them, and it takes maturity and personal resolve to stand up in some of those places for some of the issues.
Okay, Rex, can you relate to any of this? See any trends?
I have to make confession, I don't understand women. And so, why they prefer easy listening and country music to, say, heavy metal, why they prefer Taylor Swift to Tool, these are minor mysteries to me. Yeah, so how on earth I would fathom why they vote the left party or the right. It's one of the great mysteries.
It's not the only mystery either. Alfred, can you mop up?
Yeah, look, geez, thanks, Rex. You just made it really tough to try and defend that position. But hey, so 2 points and one story. First of all, when I was in the National Party, the trend you're talking about is nothing new. The reality is that we still had a lot more women voting for the left than voting for the right. And I think media play into it. They call it ideological polarization. They make it all tech. The reality is that, the way that often parties talk is that they sort of talk more in economic language. It can be more technical. And in the National Party, what we found, so here's the first point, was that we said to ourselves, why is that? And then we started breaking it down to voter blocks and then came up with a statement. And I just want to say it, but please don't, sort of blame the messenger. But the voter block it came up with, they called it the Epsom housewife. And what it was is that a strongly blue electorate in which women were voting left or right in the electorate vote, but they're voting left in regards to their party vote. When they were asked the reasons why, is that in one sense, the head would say vote right because it's economic, right? It's the right thing to do. It's more sensible. It's reasonable. But they vote left with their party vote because the fact is that they also care for the environment and they care for things that are around that are more maternal. The language that was coming out from the left actually fitted with where they could put their conscience. And so they had it's like having a bob each way. Then the second point then I want to make is that then as we started to look more into that, what we realised as the National Party, here we were talking about family in one of our manifesto portfolios, and guess wasn't a single photo of families. It was all men in hard hats and, high-vis jackets and talking about with cones. And we realised that we'd sort of taken out all the feminism, we'd masculinized, all of our language and so forth. And so we got that, we actually got that wrong. So they had to shift and change. So those are my 2 points. Here's the one story, though, I want to share with you that it is possible to shift and to appeal to that. Because, with men, often the entry point is through the mind first, right? You actually have to talk some straight things, but you've also got to connect with the heart because you've got to make sure that it means something. With women, you've got to connect with the heart first. And I remember that John Key was delivering speech for the education with Hekia Parata out West Auckland here, and one of the key staff, the chief of staff, came and said to me, look, what do you think? This is your spot. This is West Auckland. Do you have any comments? I said, yeah, I want to encourage you to tell the story about his mother. And he said, about his mother? Yeah. Tell the story about his mother, that when his father died, his mother then was faced with a situation. They had two businesses, they went bust. And the accountant said, look, good news, bad news, you're going to have to sell up, you're liquidating. But the good news, I'm a good accountant. I could probably get you maybe 20 cents on the dollar. In other words, some people get paid, some won't. His mother turned around and said, no, I want you to pay everything, even if you sell the house, right? And so they did. They literally ended up with nothing. He then, took his went down to Christchurch, lived in a state house, and was a cleaner all the rest of her working days. Now, here's the tell of the tale. At the end, when we were sort of talking around the tables with people, do you know what they said? isn't John Key's mother an amazing woman? Didn't she teach him some incredible values? No one knew what the educational portfolio was about. But guess what? They didn't care because you'd won the heart, right? And I believe that sometimes in politics, we don't know how to communicate that way. And instead, as you said, Mel, you speak in black and white. You think that's what people want. And when it's not, because people want to know, do you care about the things important to us? And then you go into how you're going to show what caring looks like. That's the pragmatic side of things. So it is possible. There you go.
Yep. Okay, very good. Let's check the queue out just while we do this. Alfred, can you just check you're plugged into your computer properly because you were just a little bit clicky there. Cherie says, hi from Perth. There we are. Someone's watching in Perth. How are you? Must be a few hours behind. What is it, 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Tracy is pleased to see you, Susie. Philip is saying hi from Whitianga, Coromandel Peninsula. Another awesome night. Tracy's pleased to see you back, Alfred. There we go. Lee says, evening team from Okuku in North Canterbury, wherever that is. Warren says, a woman more likely to be able to tell fairy tales. Don't shoot the messenger, eh? Kevin says, not sure that the ladies are liberal, but they're more caring and empathetic. Warren says, if two kids are arguing over a toy, a woman wants to buy 2 toys or teach the kids to share, a man will just take the toy away. It's probably true, actually. Veritatis says, possibly because women can be emotionally preyed upon. We tend to want to aim for things that will create change for the vulnerable. However, the unfortunate truth is that these are very left-leaning. Now, just note that some women are making these comments, so don't shoot the messenger, as I said. Leonie says, I just think younger people are more brainwashed by social media. Blue Rain says, a woman rides the beast. I've started to wonder if this means the beast system piggybacks off the feminine qualities like nurturing, inclusive, etc., but twisted and that lets the fox in with the hens. What? Okay, Blue, stay off that smoky stuff. Christine says, I find women in my circle, young and old, chat about politics a lot. We have great discussions and debate, critical thinkers here. I tell you, you got everybody racked up. Lynette says, remember, we all have red blood and put our undies on the same way. Okay, gosh, you guys are really rocking tonight. Justine says, I'm a Christian woman, vote very conservatively. I'm also a fan of country music. That's okay. We will forgive you. Grant says, Labour is mum and National is dad. Not in my household, actually. And Thomas Sowell, a brilliant historian, said that in his youth he was left-leaning and he had said something along the lines of, you came to the conclusion that you vote left with your heart. What is it? When you're young, if you don't vote left, you haven't got a heart, and if you don't vote right when you get older, you haven't got a brain. It's something like that anyway. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, and I wanted to ask this once again because we've got a very strong XX panel, chromosomal-wise. And the question is, now, let me just explain here. If I start using the actual word that you can see there, which rhymes with pedophiles, then this program will get blocked. It's interesting. The social media actually goes around and blocks that. And that's a good thing because it's protecting the general public. But it does mean that when you have a serious discussion about it, it does get blocked. So I'm just going to say ped. So whenever I say ped, I'm saying the word that rhymes with pedophiles. Okay? So should we be more understanding of them? And as I said to the audience, just beware that we will be covering some interesting stuff here. So if you do have young children watching. So Victoria University did this study. They wanted to find out if there's too much stigma towards PEDs. They wanted to do this study, testing the effect of educational models. They wanted to reduce stigma towards these people, but they never used the PED word because you don't use that word. You've got to call about that people with an attraction. And they did the study, and some of the things they said. So I actually enrolled for the study and have just printed a Substack and done a McBlog on it so you can see what's in the study. But they say that people with a sexual attraction like that, it's no different to others who have any other sexual orientation. It's not something that is chosen or controlled. They say that people often believe that having this sexual attraction means that they might abuse. But although having the attraction might increase the risk, this belief is inaccurate. And having that attraction doesn't mean anything other than they have that attraction. They also say there may be links between the impact of the stigma and an increased risk of offending. Believe it or not, they say that if we have stigma towards them, that will actually increase the likelihood that they offend. Go figure. And just lastly, this one, while some people with this attraction may offend, many don't. And get this sentence. Many people who do that to a child are not motivated by that type of attraction. I mean, there was just so many dumb statements in it. But the point they're getting at is that the stigma towards this type of action may actually make the problem worse. And so the question, and I especially want to ask the ladies, because you're all very nice, right-leaning ladies with a brain, should we be nicer? Is the stigma actually the problem? Mel, I might start with you. What do you think?
I brought a bowl with me because the thought of being very nice to peds and trying to understand actually makes me sick. It does. You know, we've got a God-given nature to look after our kids, to protect them. Anything beyond that, any hurting of any child, I actually cannot relate to in any way, shape or form. You've only got to look at all the stats to see that peds reoffend and reoffend and reoffend. It's usually not just a once-off. They can go and do their time and come out and reoffend. So, no, I don't think we need to be nice or more understanding or anything of the sort. In fact, we probably need to raise the issue that it's a huge problem more than anything.
Yeah. In fact, Canadian clinical psychologist Dr. Jordan Peterson actually noted that the study was going on in New Zealand and actually retweeted it on X because he was that horrified by it. Sue, what do you think? I mean, is this just the type of stuff that comes out of Victoria University, or do you think they have a point?
It's interesting. Look, there's still things that shock me. It's misguided and irresponsible. And I think that we're in danger of the love, don't judge syrup pouring over society's sensibilities. When we had when we lose confidence as a society, when we say, when we move the boundaries and we blur the boundaries, and that causes confusion. The same was done with the justice, the the legal system, with criminals, and saying, dumbing it all down and lessening the sentences and trying to say, oh, we've got to have more empathy and we've got to, for a complete and absolute disregard for victims. And we should be building back, and probably we've reached tipping point. We're trying to build back to have a tougher response and tougher consequences for criminals who offend. But the other point that I wanted to make was that when we had the marriage laws changed years ago, the warning went out from Family First that if you take any part away from those 4 key parts of marriage laws, so it was age, the number, one man, one woman, not a close relative, and not already married. Now, now we have thruples on TV and all this sort of, such a confusion around relationships and what is good for our society, and so it's not a surprise now that they're now saying that this is classing it as just another orientation, which is absolutely outrageous and should be met with the scorn that it deserves. As a woman, as a mum, I'm very passionate in protecting children. That's why I speak out on so many things that I do. It's a great motivating factor being a mum, and we are protectors, and we should be protectors in our society for the most vulnerable. And excusing this behaviour just cannot be accepted. So we've just got to make sure that we say, here's the line. here's the boundary.
Yeah.
It's not okay. And it's not about stigma. There's a law. There's a reason why that line and that boundary exists. And don't blur it and lead to confusion.
Yeah.
It doesn't help anyone. It certainly doesn't help offenders either.
Okay, there's some very good comments coming through. Susie, I just want to run a comment past you, and it says this. Cherie says, so they are not responsible for their actions. It's all our fault because we're mean to them. Is the stigma a problem, and that actually makes it worse? I mean, the implication is that because there's a stigma against them, because we protect our kids and because there's the mama bear approach, that actually is the problem, and we need to lighten up a little bit. Do you think we need to lighten up in this area?
Absolutely not. I think we need to increase our disgust at any idea that this kind of behaviour should be accepted. I think, any dumbing down of it leads to the logical conclusion that everything, any expression, any sexual expression and deviance is just fair game and you can do whatever. And we are totally leaving kids vulnerable, or babies vulnerable, and that should in any mama bear heart be the provocation for speaking out. And I can't believe Victoria University was allowed to have these ideas chucked out in their study. That is disgusting, and I'm just like, I'm so sorry for anyone who has to go to that university. It's demonic, it's sin, and nobody likes to hear the truth when it's that black and white. But there's no good that comes of embracing hey, it's all good. I would be kind, I'm going to say, because I'm a pastor, I'd be kind to you face to face. You come to a point of repentance and want to remedy, want to change, want the best in your life, and just forsake all of this disgusting kind of tendency, however it presents in your life. But there should be absolutely no kindness in legislation, in our approach, in all of our circles toward this behaviour. And this study is just another attempt to soften societal views toward it. It's so obvious, and I hope everybody can see that.
Okay, Professor Rex, it's not your university. Are you surprised that this is coming out of Victoria?
Yeah, I think Otago missed the trick there. They should have got in first there. I can see some disappointment there amongst the sociologists and the medical school.
I can see your tongue in your cheek as well. Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, you have to see this as yet another stage in the entire sexual revolution. So, talking about the removal of stigma. Now, we removed the stigma to illegitimate children born out of wedlock, 1969 with the Status of Children Act. Then we removed the stigma over homosexuality in 1985 when we decriminalised it. Then we've been removing the stigma, if there was any anyway, over transsexuals. So now we want to, or some would want to, remove the stigma over, we can't use that word, let's call them Philistines, not the other word, just it's got a word. These are persons that have attractions to minors. No, it's all going along that same pathway, I'm afraid. There are certain people have an attraction to animals. This is before they're consumed, of course. Perhaps that's the next thing, of course. We'll find a group that, have an attraction to animals, and they too are being stigmatised. All you see is part of the repaganisation of society as you go back in time prior to Christianity, where they had the good old Romans and the good old Greeks who, we know what their proclivities were when it came to youths and children.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, the irony is that we're a bit wary of saying it because we may be blocked on social media. And yet, if you look hard enough on a lot of social media, you will find some of this type of material anyway, which is kind of the irony about all this. Alfred, is there a place for more grace, or do we need to, the stigma serves a good purpose?
So we've just had a Royal Commission on inquiry into the abuse and care. Over 3,000 people shared their horrific experiences, many of them when they were young children, who, by the way, never had a choice. No one asked them, are you attracted to an adult? No one asked them in their times of grief and pain, and many of these stories were shared by people who are adults, but the abuses happened when they were children. So why are we trying to talk about destigmatization when the fact is that we're only just coming to grips with the epidemic of abuse of children at the moment? So to me, it doesn't make sense. I mean, the reality is you only hear of a person who's a paedophile, of that name. Mm-hmm. Well, let's call it minor attracted people, because that's what they try to call it, right, Bob? And they try to call it minor attracted people. And the reality is you only hear about it when there's been some form of abuse that's happened, they've been caught, right? And otherwise, you'll never hear it. So people in their own minds and where they are have every opportunity to seek care. So why do we want to talk about destigmatizing in the public arena? The only reason they come into the public arena is when they've done something wrong. In other words, when they've broken the law. Why is it that we have a law, right, for very good reasons, that the age of consent starts from 18 and upwards, right? So why are we now turning around and trying to create this destigmatization and trying to minimize the impact on everyone? So grace is already there, Bob. It's already been shown by the number of opportunities for counselling, for therapy, and for help that's already there. When people of a size actually, right, I need help and need support, then they can go test that. When you break the law, when you abuse and you break the spirit of a child through abuse, then you have to face the consequences from that. You cannot destigmatize that.
Yep. Okay, and next time you pay your internet bill, can you pay the whole thing? Because I think they're cutting you off every so often. Anyway, Cherie says, so they're not responsible for their actions. It's all our fault because I read that. That's right. Tracy says, the study is dripping in academic idiocracy of what makes a great topic to waste research money and time on. Yes, I mean, it is a government-funded university. They've tried to create a way it's the stigma to try and normalise this. Stacey said it was always going to come to this. Give the enemy an inch and he'll take a mile. Linda says they need help, yes, but more grace, no. It's interesting that the stupid thing is a shock. We're already making excuses for many other things. Elaine, she said she tried to post my views but got a warning, so I had to delete it. So there we are. They are monitoring already, so be careful what you write. David, the African Sheep says, David Kupelian wrote a very good book about the marketing of evil. Great book. Highly recommended it. It's one of the best. Deals with the acceptance of the rainbow agenda in the 80s, how they market it. They haven't changed any of their tactics. Marketing of Evil, David Kupelian. Can't recommend that book highly enough. Philippa says maybe those church people who wrote a letter to the politicians regarding the treaty should write a letter against this type of behaviour. Well, there's a unique idea. Daryl said, if you do the crime, you go away and do the time. Consequences are a very good deterrent against crime. Let's remember the victims more and not the perpetrators. I mean, that's the thing that sort of bugged me about it, was that the focus was on the poor stigma against the offender, and there was no discussion about just the destruction that it does. And at the weekend, we saw a really awful case in Napier where the victims were scared to speak up. You know, why aren't we talking about how we can enable that? Interesting name, Woke says, not so long ago, gender dysphoria was viewed by all doctors as a mental illness. How fast they caved. I don't trust my own doctor, not since 2020. Sue says, Jacinda's reaction to Christchurch was fake. Iranian woman in New Zealand asked her for solidarity in their fight against wearing the hijab, but she did the exact opposite by wearing that symbol of oppression. Well, there we go. So we've got lots of comments today. All right, 2 topics down. Let's see if we can get on to the next one. Just before we do, quick promo.
If you're looking for news that you can trust, commentary on key family and social issues, and conservative conversations, go no further. Family First has them all. Monday nights, live at 8 p.m, Straight Talk with our panel. Tuesday mornings, live at 8 a.m, Solid Ground with Simon O'Connor. Wednesdays, watch for the latest episode of Pulse Point to drop. We watch the news so that you don't have to. Thursdays, live at 5 p.m, political playback with Bob McCoskrie and Simon O'Connor discussing the week in Parliament and politics in general. Plus, there's regular episodes of social commentary with Mick Blogg and interviews on family matters throughout the week. You can watch these live and also on demand on our website, Facebook page, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on our YouTube channel. Finally, something worth watching that you can trust. Go to familyfirst.watch for more details.
All right, plenty to watch. And actually, just to let you know that I don't think Solid Ground is happening tomorrow morning. Simon O'Connor, there was a family bereavement. And Simon, our love and prayers are with you at this time. Right. Speaking of social media, should we put age limits on them? Australia is set to, well, they're thinking about banning kids from social media sites. Could New Zealand be next? Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese made the announcement last week. He said the government would enforce the minimum age to social media to about 16 years old.
This is a scourge. The bullying that can occur online, the access to material which causes social harm. Every parent is concerned about what their young ones are having access to. Social media has a social responsibility also to do the right thing here, not to pretend that it's nothing to do with them, because it is causing harm.
Okay, and when Christopher Luxon and Chris Hipkins were both asked about it, they both expressed concern about it. Now, for you boomers in the audience and in the panel, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat and YouTube are among those that require the user to be 13, but I don't know and don't think they actually enforce it. So age verification is an interesting one to go down. And interesting how the whole phone ban in schools was opposed by a lot of teachers and principals, and now they think, wow, it's actually working, which to me, I still can't get my head around the fact that professional teachers couldn't figure out that would be a solution. Susie, I know that you, well, one, you've got kids, but two, you're also on a school board. In terms of social media for young kids, how important do you think it is that we as adults start to make some hard decisions?
That's very important, and I think it's great for parents to be supported by legislation. So, you know, you've always, if they put something like this, and I'm a bit gutted that Australia's ahead of us. I'm like, what? Really smart about Anthony Albanese. So obviously I applaud their plans. It's, you know, we need every help that we can get to sort of say to kids, no, you don't need this. And if you don't have the fortitude as a parent yourself to like just put that into place, at least you can say, well, it's illegal for you to be on social media and pretending that you're 15, 16 or whatever. So yeah, it's very welcome. I think it's a natural progression from our cell phone ban in schools. And I've, you know, obviously just seen the detrimental results to kids spending so much time. The attention span is like that. You know, just way too much information about the world and all its, you know, social evils, and not enough about the basics of like writing an essay or, you know, expressing your thoughts in sentences and stuff like that. And just results are dropping all over the place where academic achievement should be the focus. So, you know, I know kids are on TikTok, they sneak in or they're aided by their parents. I don't know. There's young parents now, and they're just a little bit naive to the overarching results in the end for their kids. But we see parents coming along to assemblies or, you know, community events, and their parents are on the phone all the time. You know, parents are just busy filming them for the next TikTok or Instagram post. And that's sad because they're just not even living in the moment. They're living for another moment and, you know, just missing out entirely. So I think I'll just with our own children, we didn't let any of them have a cell phone before the age of 13. And even when they did have a cell phone, they weren't allowed on Instagram or Facebook until they'd had some time. We placed restrictions on them. So their phone goes off at a certain time and they have to ask us if they want a little bit more. And like, oh, I want to set my alarm for tomorrow's school. Yeah, whatever. And, we, in our house, we have like the computers and the screens all in the public areas and the lounge and stuff. So we can walk in and see exactly what social media websites, what's they're viewing all the time. And just that parents need those kinds of suggestions, those kinds of ideas, and those kinds of things to aid them from lawmakers and people who just know the social ills of kids spending too much time. It's just way too much exposure for them. Like, there's no need for the world to see them and their thoughts and their young kind of, they're growing up on social media, and it's entirely useless and unhealthy for them. So, age limit, yes, please.
Good. Mel, some people won't know that you've been a caregiver for a long time with OT, and before that, SIFs and every other name that they've called themselves. Have you seen evidence of just the problem that social media is doing and cell phones and all that with at-risk kids that you're coming into contact with?
Yeah, big time. We've cared for over 450 high-risk and behavioural teenage boys, and we've seen it all. We had a policy for a long, long time in our home that cell phones just weren't allowed and that they had to be earned. There is a bit of a stigma against that, I guess, possibly from the department. I've got to be careful what I say. Kids need to have access to a phone if they're in care 24/7, basically. So we've got an internet provider where I have full control. I can set all the limits on everything, the age limits, the time limits, and whatnot. But I think that it's great. Yes, let's do that with social media. But the problem is so much bigger. We have had so many youth in our place with, like, you're talking 13, 14 up with porn addictions, like full-on porn addictions. We need to address that. You've got the music industry. There's a song by Cardi B called WAP. I'm a bit worried about how I put this forward. It does stand for something, WAP. And if you'd like to look it up, go for it. That's probably as far as I'll go there. But you can ban all the social media sites. But if a child or a young person has a phone and they have, Spotify, or I tried it today actually on my iPhone. So I've got iTunes, and you can go on and you can watch the video. You can download the Cardi B WAP video, and that is full-on pornographic, sick. The words to it are just mind-blowing, and I don't know any youth that we've had that don't know that song. So I think the problem's way bigger. We need to start somewhere, and this is a great start, but I think we need to educate our kids, our parents, just educate, because kids are clever and there's so much going on behind the scenes. And to go on a porn site, the kids have said all they've got to do is click the yes, I am 18 or over. What sort of filter is that? What sort of protection is that for our young people?
Yeah. Okay, Sue, you agree with the age restriction, or is it too late?
No, well, yes, in its entirety, yes. But I met it with some cynicism because it's Albanese bringing it forward, and he's got some pretty heavy digital laws that he wants to roll out in Australia. So I wasn't, really on board with what he was, with his sincerity. And it just flies in the face of online learning that they promote. Even Adelaide University just this week has announced that they're going to online, and that's in line. Also, Tasmania University's done that. And would it work? Well, we need parents' support, and we need a law that has teeth. And there was actually a really good interview by the South Australian Premier, Peter Melanakis, on Q&A, and he raised some really, really good points on that. But I want to bring up what Mel was going to say, and I was going to allude to this, that so we're going to push on about, these age limits. However, they've still ignored our petition for a porn inquiry, and that we've stood on the steps and handed that petition over, Bob. And we need the age verification technology, and you just can't. We've got to. We have a duty of care to our young people. This is what the South Australian Premier said, that we have a duty to young people because they're fragile and this harms them. Harm can be done. Yet no one is talking about the issue of porn and some of these, and the music industry, as Mel pointed out. There's such huge ideas and huge information, knowledge that just is like a tsunami on the minds of young people. And that's what we've got to, you can try and roll it back. Jonathan Haidt has said about the harms of the screen time and harms of the social media. It's huge. And can we just tighten it up with some laws? No, we're going to have a big conversation and get parents on board, and we need laws with teeth. But I don't know about rolling this back. This is there's a lot of stuff that just rolls onto screens and rolls into our kids' minds. And we had age-related milestones with our children, and they weren't allowed to have a phone until they actually got to college back in the day. And we just sort of were ahead of that curve of the 2012 when it really started to roll out with our children and screens. So, so we had age-related milestones, and they're getting harder and harder as parents of young children to enforce. I think there's some contradictions around it when we say we want online learning and we want this online and we want that online. We've got to balance it up.
Yep. Rex, is it too little too late? I mean, we actually put out a report in 2014 on this exact issue, saying that kids had too much screen times and there was too much digital computers in schools. And I remember going to a one breakfast interview and they just about laughed me out of the studio. It's too little too late, isn't it, for this?
I don't know. I'm always a bit reluctant. There's the political and the legal solution to everything. So there's some social ill or mischief, and knee-jerk reaction is, let's pass a law against them. Well, that may sometimes work, but often doesn't work. In this case, if the Australians want to do it, well, we've got a nice little social experiment across the Tasman. Let them do it. Let us learn from their experiment, see how easy to enforce. Let's sit back, let old Elbow there, the little gnome, let him and his party try to come up with something. We can observe it here, but you shouldn't rush in under some idea of trans-Tasman comity and just copy them. Let's see what they do first and then just take it from there.
Okay, just like we're watching Colorado with legalising cannabis as well. Alfred, what's your thoughts?
I get my glasses done, Bob, and because you can get these sort of anti-reflector, because and this lady and the young woman said to me, do you want to have Blu-ray in your glasses? I said, what's Blu-ray? She said it's what they're putting in glasses now because it helps to reduce the amount of harm from digital devices.
Yeah.
I'd never heard about it. So, look, the stats are pretty clear. For most people, and 80% of Kiwis use social media, by the way. We spend 2 hours on average per person every day. They reckon that the amount of swiping that we do equates to about 2 kilometres. It's pretty amazing. So is there creating harm? Look, it's not just about the age thing. I think there is a real issue to be asked about, the amount of time we spend on our devices and what we're doing and what we're using them for as well. But I think that's inevitable. We have to get there. You would have seen in the news a couple of weeks ago where they found that some of the devices that young primary school kids had already had access to porn sites. And so where are all the filters there? And I think we're always going to be into that mode. But is it too late? I don't think there's nothing that's too late. I think now is a good time to be able to say, what should we do? And yet, I can just say, let's wait what the Aussies are doing. But I think we need to start doing what we need to do to try and address this issue. And, just over here, and we're still where what they did is that they started allowing children to make trolleys, boards, kick balls around, and spend less time on their devices. Do you know what happened? Their academic achievements started going up. Kids started being happier. And parents started realizing that actually more time with kids is actually what they need, rather than allowing for a device to sort of substitute that whole time of spending time with kids. So it's a combination of things. I think families themselves can start taking back that space, saying that when they have, I'm not sure it'd be quite like Susie's house, where it sounds like more like a commune, where, they're going to put all that in one spot. But good on them.
That's what we do as well.
You got to do something. A little sort of commune sort of type sort of gathering. But you've got to, I want to encourage families, start taking back your own space, your own home. Make sure that when there's meals, there's no phones, things like that you can introduce. I think it's a good thing.
And keep them out of bedrooms. If you let technology in bedrooms, you're just asking for trouble. Actually, I heard the principal of a high school today in the media. He was saying how great the phone ban was, and that for the first time in a long time, they actually had a rugby ball that broke a window. And it was the first time that kids were actually outside doing something constructive, which go figure. Now, we did have, who was it mentioned? Somebody mentioned Jonathan Haidt, who we interviewed for our conference in July. He's written the book Anxious Generation, and he actually did a little summary that our presenter, Tumby Stow, has put a little reel together. This was his summary of how we deal with the problem is.
So the first is no smartphone before high school. In the United States, we have a clear divide around age 13, 14. Give them a flip phone. Give them a phone watch. Don't give them the internet in their pocket before 14. Second rule, no social media till 16. Social media is completely inappropriate for minors. It's an adult-only thing. It's full of sex and violence. It's full of solicitation. It's full of marketing. It's full of real dangers for kids, all kinds of scams, manipulation. So, adults, we let them make their own decisions, and if they want to do things that are bad for them, that's their choice. I don't want to let companies just reach my children and do things that are bad for my children without my knowledge or permission. Yeah. This is insane. So no social media before 16, and for that, it would be really helpful to have laws. We can actually get this done mostly just with norms, not laws. But on this point, getting legislation, which is happening in Florida, in Utah, it's happening in the UK, is working on this too. If we can get legislation to say you can't even open an account until you're 16. The law currently says 13, and it's not enforced. Why not raise it to 16 and enforce it? So that's the second rule. No social media before 16. The third norm is the easiest of all. We can get it done this year. It's phone-free schools. It's complete insanity to let kids have a phone in their pocket during school. Most schools say you're not allowed to use your phone during class, which is like saying to heroin addicts, you can bring your needles in to the clinic, you can bring your stash in, but just keep it in your pocket. Just don't take it out and everything will be okay. They can't. They have to take it out. They have to be texting during class. They have to be watching TikTok during class. So the only solution is lock up the phones in the morning when they come to school in a phone locker or a yonder pouch, a lockable pouch. The fourth is the hardest because it's the one where we have to give up something, not our kids. It's more independence, free play, and responsibility in the real world. It means we have to overcome our fears and let our kids out and let them hang out with other kids with no adult supervising. What if there's a fight? What if there's an argument? What if there are hurt feelings? Yeah, that would be actually good. They need that. So again, it may not be as much of a change in New Zealand, but as you said, like you're following us in all the bad trends. So don't follow us. Look at what we did and just never do what we did because we really got this wrong.
Okay, and you can watch that whole interview on our YouTube channel. It's with Jonathan Haidt, really important one. Okay, team, we've got 2 minutes. So basically I'm going to ask you a question and you've got about a minute to answer it. And that is that they're putting counsellors into primary schools, 200 primary schools. They did this test. ERO, Education Review Office, said that kids felt better, improved their behaviour, attendance, $44 million scheme over the last 3 years. And for some, it didn't improve, but for the majority, it did improve. They blame COVID for a lot of the stress, which I don't agree with, because if you look at the stats, you see it was already worsening before COVID. But simply, why do we need more counsellors in primary schools? Susie, I'm going to come to you because I've already let the cat out of the bag that you're a trustee for a primary school. why do we need more counselling services in primary schools? And I'm sorry, you've got 60 seconds.
Yeah, 19 years on a board, and it's the worst right now. Neurodiverse issues are presenting all the time and increasing numbers and harder to control. And we've got attempts at physical restraint and all that kind of thing, but they're so unclear. Just the power is all on the kids, and when they act up, the teachers really don't have a lot of recourse, a lot of things that they can do. So my answer is prayer. Honestly, I just am praying for young people in our school and in our community. And I'm seeing just a real cool thing is that a lot of families are coming back to church, coming and just saying, oh, we want our kids to come and be in Sunday school. We want help because we're just struggling as a family. And so that's really cool. I'm hearing that from other pastors around New Zealand as well. Just an increase in families understanding that there's anxiety. It's everywhere. It's in young people more and more, and we need God. Yeah.
Good. Mel, given your background with OT, I'm assuming that you wouldn't be surprised that we need counsellors in primary schools.
Oh, absolutely not. We do. What we need is good counsellors that are there for the kids. We're also severely lacking in clinical psychologists. There's not enough of them out there to work with kids and a lot of the childhood trauma that's going on. Counsellors are great, but even if they need to recommend a clinical psychologist for a young person to go to, there's a huge waiting list. But you're looking at the decline of society, you're looking at screens like we were just talking about. I mean, all those are attributing factors to why we need counsellors in schools. I just want to make sure we've got the right counsellors, not woke counsellors that want to target kids to make sure that their parents are, supporting whatever gender they want to be or whatever. That's really important that we have the right counsellors in there.
Okay, so you're surprised that we need counsellors in primary schools?
No, I'm not surprised. I get the feeling that schools are almost set up to replace the family unit these days because they're required to tend to every so vast need, a vast array of needs with these children. The family unit. I can only speak from my experience with families that more families living under pressures and like Mel said, having the right counsellors. I'll be the eternal I'm cynical. So, but families are pressured, and there's just more families are living away from extended families, so not the practical help. Communities are fragmented and mistrust there. And so we just families are not meant to do life on their own. It's a sad reflection of breakdown of those sort of things, breakdown of family unit and the connectedness in communities.
Okay, and just to show that your husband has as much brains as you, he sent through a comment that says, we live in a world with so much information available, but people are more ignorant than ever. There we are. That's a good quote. Well done, Brent. Nice one. Rex, do you want to add to that? Do you think it's problematic that we need counsellors in primary schools, or is it just this is where society's heading?
No, we don't need more counsellors in primary schools. And what we do need with that 44 million is a wise allocation of economic resources. Under the masculine view here, not a soppy one. We've got to apply that money to truancy officers to get these little sods back into school. The attendance rates in New Zealand are appalling, and they can't be counselled if they're not even in school for a start. Yep. So spend that $44 million and rounding up these kids, giving the parents a kick in the backside, get them along to school. Talk about law, it's compulsory to send your kids to school in New Zealand. Did you know there's a law on that? Enforce that law.
Okay, I might send them round with your jandal. Alfred, you got the final say.
Yeah, I think you've been gender biased. I'm like Rex, you've given the woman more than 60 seconds and you keep saying strict 60 seconds, but anyway.
No, what I do is, the reason is that I let the woman speak first so that you guys can get some ideas about what to say and sound intelligent.
Look, I'm with Rex on this and with Mel that no, we don't need more counsellors. We need more access to good counsellors. We've already got SWIS. SWIS is the acronym for social workers in schools, right? So we've already got there. Part of the role of a social worker is to detect if there's a need for. We don't just need more, and yet we need some more truancy. But we also need to engage more families so that we're not surrogating consistently the role of parents and helping parents to take on some of those roles and working through with them, with children as well, that are there. That's really important. So, so I think that we don't need more counsellors. We need good counsellors, better access to them, and we just need to make sure that we get our kids and make it a good learning experience when they're in school.
Okay. Gee, I like it when you speak short and concise and to the point, Alfred. Well done. Right, that's all we've got time for. We are just over. Hey, thank you, ladies. You did a fantastic job and completely compensated for the men. But well done, panel. That was really fantastic discussion. We're out of time. We will be back next Monday night at 8 o'clock. Don't forget Political Playback on Thursday at 5 live when Simon and me take on everything political. But until then, you have a great week. Good night.
Yeah.